What's happening, guys? Shay here. Uneven bounce. Hope you guys are well. So it wasn't third time lucky, unfortunately, for us England fans. Yes, England go down in a fantastic third and final match game of this entire bilateral series against India. Go down by a narrower margin, 7 runs, in what was a fantastic series, actually, and a great way to end this tour of India. Bittersweet, unfortunately, but yeah, it was a great series all around. At least by 7 runs today, despite a fantastic knock. I think it was debut 50 from Sam Curran. Ended up 95 not out of 83 balls. Almost got us home. I thought him and Will were going to do it, but unfortunately not to be. But yeah, a clean sweep for India, so well done to them. Obviously, with me today to discuss and get into it, I've got, actually, for the first time, I've had Joe and Aaron on separately on multiple occasions. For the first time, I've got both of them together. So obviously, the host of the County Cricket Podcast, and we'll discuss that later. So Joe and Aaron, and I've got, obviously, the Indian panelists I've had on for the last 2 months. So great to see them back. I've got Anurag Reddy, Aditya Mehta, and Sayan Banajee. Guys, how are we doing?
Ecstatic. Great, Chef.
Not as
I'm
good.
sure you're great, isn't it, Anurag? I'm sure you're great.
Yeah, after that.
Not as good, to be fair.
Yeah.
Certainly for me after England lose, but yeah, we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Sayan's playing it cool, but I know he's very, very ecstatic, I'm sure, right now. I can see in his face. But it was a very, very narrow. So listen, it was I think it's fair to say, isn't it? 2 of the best white ball sides in world cricket, and just judging from the games how they played out, it was a very hot tested 3 games. But anyway, so we'll get into it. We'll start with India, actually. I mentioned before on the post T20 series the fact of likes of KRO and Shikhar Dhawan were dropped from Dhawan after the first game. Carroll was dropped from the last game, I believe, from memory. They obviously played in this series. We saw a return to form for both guys with some runs under the belt. That being said, obviously it goes to Indian panelists here mainly. Do you feel maybe that a chance possibly missed? I think I'll just probably mentioned a few times, but ultimately the 50 over World Cup is not for another 2.5 years. Shikhar Dhawan's 34 this year. We didn't see Suryakumar Yadav, which I think a lot of people thought we would. Was a potentially an opportunity missed with the likes of him and Ishan Kishan not getting a game across a series? I'll start with you, Aditya. And is anyone else maybe not mentioned that you'd like to have seen in a series, which obviously had some merit, contributing towards Super League points. Like I said, 2.5 years away from the World Cup. You could say maybe early planning. I think it's maybe too soon to say that, but maybe it's an opportunity to give some other guys a go, like we saw with England.
Well, first off, well played to England. Incredible series. Sam Curran, top luck. I think England deserved to win that one, and I guess he'll learn next time. But I think there are plenty of questions for India to answer in this series because they seem to be hamstrung by the fact that they have no more than 5 or at most 6 bowlers to choose from at any given stage, and that's certainly not sustainable going into a major tournament 2.5 years later. If you look back at just previous generation of cricketers, Sehwag, Sachin, Yuvraj Singh, Suresh Raina, 4 of your top 5 can give you at least 5 overs in a game. That's an incredible luxury to have, and we don't seem to have that right now. And somewhere I feel like we talked about this at the end of the T20 series as well. We seem to be lacking a philosophy or a structure in the way that we select our players. And part of it may be because of the wealth of riches that we're lucky to have. But in saying that, I think we definitely need more clarity. Today, for example, we only played Krunal Pandya as our spinner. And the point is, and the priority seems to be that we need to bat as deep as possible. But in doing that, we're also limiting our bowling options. Because if Krunal Pandya gives you like 10 runs with the bat, okay, he's definitely going to be the bowler that England target with the ball. So, what's his net value as a player in the side? We would have been much better off having, a specialist spinner, Kuldeep Yadav or Chahal. And my mind is certainly going to Ravichandran Ashwin because he's one who can bat as well. So I think India definitely needs to do some thinking there because it wasn't too long ago, maybe a year and a half ago, where our middle overs 11 to 40 were dominated by Yuzi Chahal and Kuldeep Yadav. And I don't know why that formula failed. I thought we were doing quite well before.
Sayan, did you want to maybe elaborate on that? Obviously, we saw Professor Krishna, who you were a big fan of, I believe, in the post T20 series. You were talking about him. I remember leading into this series. As I mentioned before about Gerald and Darwan, was an opportunity maybe to blood some new players, or brought in some of the other guys we saw in the T20 series?
Yeah. So the thing is, there's only as I see it, there are only 2 years left for the 2023. What India can do right now is they can try out different permutation and combination of different variety and sets of people who fit into the side, and then chop up to form the final 15 or whatever 18 a year before the World Cup. Okay, so they should start right now. I think Dhawan brilliant knock today, and in the first ODI he doesn't fit into the ODI scheme because, as we saw, the openers need to play at a strike rate of above 100. All the English players, I believe, have a strike rate of above 100, right? So we need to adopt kind of that methodology. And if that's not happening, I don't see the World Cup coming to us in the next ODI World Cup, right? So yeah, that's my thought.
I think that was actually contested quite a lot, wasn't it? We saw, I was watching the Sky broadcast, that was talked about a lot, wasn't it? The approach to the ODI game. England obviously set the foundations for, I think, a new brand of cricket, dare I say those buzzwords, but over the last 6 years, which actually started under Trevor Bayliss. Now, Aaron, I'll come to you. Obviously, a lot of criticism was labelled towards India, despite them winning the series, but the method, especially in the power play, of it's more of a traditional setup of England of yesteryear. You go back in a few years, you saw a similar approach. Build your innings, got a reasonable pace, save wickets to the end, and then go big. Do you feel like, just to kind of follow on what Sayan said, if India have a strong chance of winning the World Cup, obviously it's in India as well, so I think it's a very important point to bring up. Do you feel like they maybe have to change their approach, or is this going to work, you think, even in 2 years' time?
So, Shay, the way I see it, both of our openers are brilliant players. So once they get to their centuries, you see the way they accelerate, especially Rohit Sharma. Once he gets to his hundreds, then he look to score daddy hundreds. It's literally, he goes bonkers after that century. So I think that won't be an issue for now. But later, when the game keeps evolving, you need players who literally play 100 plus every time. Not just that you keep taking singles here and there. And if you remember the game where KL Rahul made a century, he had an opportunity to go bigger. But other than that, he couldn't score much there. So that is where I think we lost the match there. But if you look at the next World Cup, I think we'll have to make a few adjustments here and there, but literally not make too many changes to disturb the entire balance. So I think for now it is all okay, but later you'll have to make changes.
Aaron, I'll go to you about just following up on this point. Obviously, I think what I'm trying to say is class players will find their way to play in any kind of given game, as opposed to a one-size-fits-all approach, irrespective of the players that are taking the spots. Do you feel it's a case of horse for courses and the approach that is kind of that you start a game with, or is it a case of, and obviously looking at pitch conditions, weather, etc., or as England have showed the last few years, obviously now the current World Cup winners, is the aggressive approach that they showed, is that kind of the way forward for most teams, you think, to be successful? Or is it more variable factors to discuss for each country?
Well, of course there are. And we speak about this so many times, don't we, on Cricket Fanatics magazine, about identity. It's my real buzzword, per se. I always bring that up on the streams with regards to the Proteas. And it does depend on the team. Because let's say that you want to use this aggressive approach, and it works for England because we have Bairstow, Roy, Root, Stokes, Butler, all of these world-class players. The same approach that England utilised for World Cup glory won't necessarily translate into success for the West Indies or Bangladesh, for example. So it's all well and good going in with this aggressive, brash approach, trying to get to 100 for none within the first 10 overs. But again, you have to be versatile and adaptable depending on the batting lineup. Now, again, at times, this approach has served England brilliantly. We've seen it on countless occasions. I think back to Trent Bridge in 2018 with that incredible 450-odd against Australia. But at the same time, it also does leave you prone to, as we saw in the first game, collapses. But that is part and parcel of it. So in my opinion, the aggressive approach, yes, it's going to get you these massive totals. It's going to get you the 400 plus, the 450 pluses. But not every single team can utilise it. England are a very, very special case. And although India have got the weaponry, you look, Rohit Sharma, as Anurag was talking there, has the ability to get double hundreds per se. You've got Dhawan, Kohli, Pant, Pandya. They have the firepower, but is it the right frame of mind? Is it the correct approach for India? Because they tried it today, and I'm going to be honest, the innings was all over the place. It started off really well, then it collapsed, then it started rebuilding with that Pant and Pandya partnership, and then it collapsed again. So for me, for the time being, I'm not 100% sure that India should go with the all-gun blazing approach. They've done well in international cricket, remember? World Cup semi-finalists in 2019. It's not as though they went out in the group stage. It has worked for them in the past. So I actually don't mind their current setup, but it's just about the little bits and pieces in and around the team, fitting in the missing piece of the jigsaw per se. So I don't think it's the approach. I think it's just personnel. I think that India really need to have a set top 5, top 6. They have the weaponry, but they've got so many options. It's almost the dilemma, isn't it, when you have an embarrassment of riches? So that would be my personal thoughts on that, Shay. And then with regards to weather conditions, match situations, of course. But again, that comes back to the V word, versatility. And that changes from game to game depending on conditions, match situations, etc., etc.
Thank you, Aaron. Joe, obviously at the forefront of England's research in white ball cricket, particularly ODI cricket, is one of your favourite players, Johnny Bairstow, it's fair to say. He's been a wonder in the series again. Obviously only 3 matches, but a 19 losing calls in the first game and a wonderful 100 in the second game. What was your thoughts on Johnny Bairstow's performances in the series? I think also I want to talk about a little bit, I'm sure you saw his comments. He said he wants to bat number 3 in the Test series as well. He's come out fighting as Johnny Bairstow does, as you've seen time and time again. He's come out all guns blazing. It's always nice to score after 100. Then you go and it's the best time, isn't it, to kind of set your place. But he's come out and said he wants to bat 3 in Australia, which, if you think about those wickets, it's maybe not the most lucrative thing to think about, even after the performances in India. So yeah, for you, Joe, what is your thoughts on Bairstow's performances? Has he hit his ceiling? He's 32 in September. Are we seeing the best Johnny Bairstow that we're ever going to see, or do you feel he can take it to another level? And what are your thoughts on Johnny Bairstow going forward as a 3-format cricketer?
I think there's definitely a future for him there. We kind of, you mentioned that, has he hit a ceiling? Personally, I don't think he has. I think, now correct me if I'm wrong here, I may have misinterpreted it or misread it, but I think I saw him say he wants to be England's, score the most one-day hundreds for England in their history at the end of his career. Now, obviously, that's going to be a bit of an issue considering Joe Root is 3 years younger than him and still playing, and has 5, I think, or 6 more hundreds than him currently. So that's obviously going to be a bit of an issue. But for me, Johnny Bairstow, the sky's the limit with him. One thing I'm surprised he's not actually done is gone on and got that double 100. But I think he definitely possesses the ability to just score so consistently, and that's what I really, really like about him. I think obviously he was unlucky not to get the 100 in the first game. I think not today. Sorry, what day was it? Friday the game was, wasn't it? I think Friday he was just unbelievable. That's just classic Johnny Bairstow. That's how good he can be and better, in my opinion. And obviously today he was didn't play the best shot, but that's how it is. You're not going to score 90, 100 every game. But for me, yeah, Johnny Bairstow can be a 3-format player for England. I do believe he can bat 3 in the Ashes. I don't see any reason why he can't. He's a fighting player. I'm a massive fan of Johnny Bairstow. Everyone knows that. So maybe I'm being biased, but I just think he's a class player. And I think, for example, in Perth, imagine Johnny Bairstow in Perth when the ball is bouncing, and he's so good on that pull shot. Imagine that, how good he can be there. And sure, he's had his problems against the swinging ball, getting bowled and stuff like that. But I just think, take a risk. England should just take a risk. Look, if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. There's 10 other players who could contribute to run scoring. So, look, he's got the summer to play. I think he was set up to fail this winter in terms of he was decent in Sri Lanka, and then for some reason got sent home. Even if, all right, he's not going to play in the first 2 tests, that's fine. Don't send him home. He's already acclimatised. So, in my opinion, he got set up to fail. He had to re-acclimatise for the last 2 tests when he flew back out here. Or I say out here, out in India. And yeah, I mean, I think he was, nobody from England particularly batted well in those last 2 games, did they? So, yeah, for me, Johnny Bairstow can be that number 3 in the Ashes. I would love to see him do that job. Maybe with, Crawley at the top of the order and with someone else. We'll have to see who that is. Who knows? But this is a white ball show, so I won't go too much into that. But yeah, it will be interesting to see. For me, he can be a 3-4 player.
I was planning to go to Aditya, but for Aaron's little quips over, I can see there's clearly some in jokes maybe during this conversation Joe's brought up. Aaron, I have to bounce back to you, mate, about Johnny Bairstow and his role in the test team going forward. I appreciate we're talking about ODIs, but with Johnny Bairstow, I do want to talk about it a little bit more. What's your opinion on him moving forward for England as a 3-4 player? Do you see him having a still place in the test team? And if you do, what position would it be? I think it's quite obvious that England have a real problem at top 3. There's still a massive gap at 3, in my opinion. Curran does not want to do it. Is Johnny Bairstow, can he somehow translate his wonderful white ball form to the test arena?
Well, we don't really know, do we? And just to allude to Joe's point there, Joe, who would open up with Zach Crawley out of interest?
I mean, I guess you've got to look at right-hand, left-hander. For me, that's a really important thing. So I lean towards Rory Burns, but there's some other good openers.
Like who?
I mean, I think Ben Duckett's a good shout if you're talking right-hand, left-hand. Yeah, we'd have to see. I don't know.
This is brilliant. This is brilliant.
Dom Sibley's a good shout as well. I've heard he's
a good shout. Dom Sibley is England's opening batsman. Simple as that. I mean, I can reel off innings after innings after innings.
Please don't. Well, we know you. We know you're a massive fan. And to be fair to me, of course he opens to batting. I mean, Joe, what are you on mate?
In all seriousness, I'm only messing.
I do
actually rate Dom Sibley, just to clarify. But yeah, I do think Crawley and Sibley should open for England this summer, not Rory Burns. But, yeah.
But Aaron, on a serious point, does Bairstow find a way through?
Well, it depends for me. I think it does depend on conditions. We all know about Bairstow's issues against seam. I don't think I'd trust him in the Ashes. I'm going to be honest. I know that sounds incredibly brutal, but against Pat Cummins, Mitchell Starc, Josh Hazlewood, I mean, those 3 alone will absolutely feast on his middle stump. It's as simple as that, unless he is going to really work in the summer on his technique, because ever since the technique change, which has led to his white ball success, he's so open in his stance, he's so leg side, and it just leaves him so vulnerable to an in-swinging delivery. It's a bit like KL Rahul for India. It's the exact same thing with him. It's the exact same issue. So in the Ashes, for me, probably not, and it'd be the same in England, unfortunately. I don't think that Johnny Bairstow is the answer to the number 3 role. So for me personally, I don't see him in home conditions or in New Zealand, Australia, South Africa, for example. But in the subcontinent, I do think there is a place. I think potentially at number 3, we saw it in Sri Lanka. We all know he's a brilliant player of spin. You think back to 2018 with that brilliant century in Colombo. We know what Johnny Bairstow is capable of on these slow, low-turning wickets. But I just think that those issues against seam, unless he has a season in the county championship and proves us all wrong, gets an 800, 1,000 run season for Yorkshire, I don't see him coming back in immediately, in particular for the New Zealand and India series in this summer.
And I think that's where his problem lies as well, is that he's played in the IPL. We've seen a lot of players who've kind of, I think it was Michael Vaughan who spoke openly about Tom Banton going to the IPL in 2020. Obviously, then got moved, so it didn't really make much of a difference anyway. Instead of playing a full, block of county championship with Somerset, and this year he's almost taken that advice on board. Has skipped this year's IPL and wants to make himself a potential Test player for England. And I think that's all credit to Tom Banton. He's gone and done that. Hopefully he can score runs. And yeah, I mean, maybe that's something that other players should look at doing. The likes of, not to be biased here, and we'll talk about him more later, but Liam Livingston was on England's, on the cusp of playing Test cricket for England. He toured New Zealand, and then he's gone to the IPL. I mean, obviously I want him to come back and play for Lancs as well. But, I think if somebody wants to make that step to Test cricket, they should be playing red ball cricket. You can't just expect to be getting in the side. It's different with Bairstow, who's played Test cricket before, and England know what he's all about. But for someone like Banton, for example, who needs that step, then I think that's all credit to him.
I want to touch on Liam Livingston later, Joe, for sure. And I think it's a very good point you mentioned. So we'll talk about him in a little while. But Aditya, I can't do an India show out speaking about Virat Kohli, to be honest. Obviously, saw him again in this series. He obviously did quite well. I think high score 66. His strike rate, though, there's something about Kohli when I watched him set up at the crease. He doesn't seem to be himself fully. I still feel he's a little bit unsure of his game, maybe at this point. I'm not unsure of his game, but maybe lacking a tiny bit of confidence. And we know obviously his confidence is over 120%, but his strike rate was the lowest of all the top order batsmen of India. And he got a little bit bogged down at times. How did you feel about him, in this series? And also as a captain as well, I think I mentioned before, he's going to be 33 in November. Obviously, the World Cup is going to be 35 years old. Do you see him wearing the armband in 2.5 years' time in the ODI World Cup?
$1 million question. Speaking about this series, I thought Kohli was fine as batsman and as captain. Obviously, I'd like to. In fact, I'd said before the series, I think he should have been rested. Him and Rohit Sharma should have been rested because in the larger scheme of things, this series was not particularly consequential, given that World Cup is 2.5 years away. But in saying that and saying that they did play, I thought Virat Kohli was fine. He did well. I would have liked to see 100 from him, at least one. But I don't think he looked out of touch or uncomfortable at the crease. We know that he's had certain problems starting against leg spin, and perhaps a little bit uncomfortable that he got out to Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid the most times in his career now. I think 9 times each, something like that. So I'm sure that's something that he's going to work on. As a captain, I thought he was okay, and I'm glad to see Rohit Sharma be a lot more proactive as vice captain. I think that partnership is really helping Indian cricket generally. But again, he was hamstrung by the fact that he had limited options with the ball, and part of that is down to selection. So,
but surely he's a part of that selection process as well, I imagine, Aditya.
He is definitely. But what can he do? If none of the top 5 bowl, there's not much that Kohli can do. And I honestly, I think there is this challenge, in selection. There is this challenge between selecting based on results versus selecting based on potential, and I do think that that's where Indian cricket gets a lot of selection wrong. Because if you look at England and you see that they play Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid, both are capable with the bat. But how often are we actually seeing Moeen Ali score a 50 or 100? How often are we seeing Adil Rashid score 45 or 50? Most of the time, they don't need to do that. But if they take two wickets each, 9 overs, 2 for 50, they've done their job most of the time. But in Indian cricket, I don't know why we're veering towards that sense of, this guy, this all-rounder can get us a very crucial 45 or 50, even if he doesn't take too many wickets or he's expensive with the ball. And I think somewhere it's that balance between having depth with the bat and having depth with the ball that we haven't been able to meet. And that to me is the biggest concern, because there's no way in my mind that Chahal doesn't play, or that Kuldeep doesn't play, or that Ashwin doesn't play. It doesn't happen. And you've seen today, Shardul Thakur was good with the ball, but if Roy Stokes or Bairstow had really dug in today, they could have won this game in like 35 overs, without a doubt. I think we were quite lucky to have all those wickets down. Ben Stokes got out to a full toss that could have gone like outside Pune. So I think there was a little bit of luck there, but it's
to be fair. I mean, India. It's almost like they were desperate to lose the game with the fielding. The fielding was abysmal. I mean, Hardik Pandya has always been, for me, a really safe pair of hands. I mean, the first drop in particular was he was shocked himself, wasn't he? The second one was on the run. Thakur, he dropped one. I remember it was the 3rd or 4th T20. He went with one hand, didn't he? And they were looking at him. And I'm not sure maybe he's the strongest guy in the field, but I think on balance of play, I appreciate what you're saying, but I felt India probably just about shade this game. Ultimately, England relied on number 8 to drag them out the crap, didn't they? That's the bottom line. They start their innings. India's innings was the right way. The batsmen made the runs, not England. we failed to a certain extent. I know Milan made 50, but ultimately, no one in the top three got a start. The openers went cheaply. I think India on balance just about shaded. I felt, and no one was better than Bhuvi across the series, in my opinion, in terms of the bowlers. So I felt they had that X factor with him. I thought he was wonderful, and as a Sunrisers fan, I'm very happy to see him in such good form. Anyway, but yeah, so Aditya, I mean, do you want to elaborate a bit more before I go to Sayan?
We need to find a way to either get a bunch of people in the top 5 bowling, or we need to find a way to balance our spin attack and our pace bowling attack. It's as simple as that, because this 5 bowler strategy is not going to work. The other thing is that with this batting approach, we've been talking about a bunch of teams having this all guns blazing template that has worked spectacularly well for England. But, and correct me if I'm wrong, Joe and Aaron, is that in bilateral series, the nature of the pitches are dictated by the host boards. But in ICC tournaments, it's the ICC that is in charge of regulating pitches. So you look at the 2019 World Cup as well. We had a couple of scores of in excess of 300, but towards the end of the tournament, 230, 240, 250 were also defendable. So I think when Aaron says that versatility is perhaps the most important attribute in any sort of cricket, there are certain things that don't change, adapting to conditions each game, or, a batsman taking his time to get in, that doesn't change. So, I think sometimes the importance of going all out is perhaps overestimated. And I do think that teams should probably take that into consideration as well.
Okay, thank you, Aditya. So, obviously, Aditya a couple of times now was referred to the balance of the side. He's clearly not particularly happy with how the team sets up currently. Obviously, it's missing Bumrah Jadeja, who for me, obviously, first choice players, I would say. Spin in general, it's a good point you actually mentioned the wickets, Aditya, because spin across both sides was pretty innocuous. If you looked at the economy rates, was going at 7s and 8s throughout the series. I think Rashid got hit for 81 today, was it? I thought he was slightly better than that, to be honest with you. But you saw today with India dropping a spinner, just with the one spinner. So I guess when it comes to end of the year, let's talk about the T20 World Cup now. India side will be a bit more balanced in terms of the spin bowlers. But do you feel like in the 50 over 11 there is an issue with how the team is set up, Sayan?
Yeah, I feel like 5 bowler theory is firstly bullshit. Okay, like what if like come on, Krunal cannot be a 5th bowler at all. What if even a Bhuvaneshwar? Yeah, what if a Bhuvaneshwar has a bad day? You need one more bowler, right? You need someone from the top 5 bowling. Like in the English team, I guess Root can bowl a few in the top right. Livingston, we need someone like that. Oh, okay. So there is, but in the Indian team now, as of the current setup, it's impossible to get someone in the top 5 because top 5 is more or less fixed, right? So I don't see that changing a lot till the 2023 World Cup unless something drastic happens. I think we need more all-rounders in the team and pace bowling all-rounders, not shitty all-rounders like Krunal Pandya, please.
Pandya, was it the second or the first match he blundered that 50? Was the score in the first or second ODI? The first one, wasn't it? The other he batted pretty well, so I thought he was hitting it quite cleanly. And he's done so well for the Mumbai Indians for so long.
He's a hit and miss player. Okay. If he hits, it goes. If it doesn't, I don't know where it goes. Well, I mean, I don't want him in the team anymore. I don't want to see him in the Blues. Okay. It's like Tom Curran in England. I don't want to see him in the Blues.
No, fair enough. I mean, you've obviously mentioned Ashwin before. Somebody should be, I think, could find his way back into the coloured clothing of India. But is there anyone else? I mean, Axar Patel, we didn't see in this series.
I was really
yeah.
I believe in domestic also Axar has a lot better stats than Krunal, and he should have easily got the nod before him. I don't know why Krunal played. I don't know why he got selected firstly. I know he had a great domestic season, but you also have to see that there are 10 to 12 teams in the domestic tournament, right? So there's not much quality bowling that comes out of it. So I don't know why he got selected.
Anurag, what's your opinion on Krunal Pandya? He's been absolutely obliterated there by Sayan, which is actually quite good to see. Some real raw passion there from Sayan. But I mean, what's your opinion, Anurag, on Krunal Pandya? Should he be dropped from the team, or maybe should he still be in the round? The selection.
So probably I'll get to the topic of what kind of spinners do India need as of now. So it is actually a vicious cycle. So do you need attacking spinners or defensive ones? So if you remember the 2017 Champions Trophy, we actually had Ashwin and Jadeja who couldn't pick Fakhar Zaman who scored a century. That is when we needed attacking spinners like Kuldeep and Yuzvendra Chahal to pick wickets in those middle overs. Now again it's 2021. You don't pick those two spinners in the team, in the playing 11. Now the point comes to what kind of spinners the selectors are looking for. If I pick a guy like Krunal Pandya who literally throws left arm rubbish at 110 kilometers per hour, it's nothing. The ball's not going to turn. I'd prefer an Akshar Patel who at least turns the ball, has a few variations, and actually belt a few sixes when it's in the slot. I'd probably want a Jadeja who's a gun fielder who'll give me a wicket with a run out or a brilliant catch, or even take wickets at will. So it comes down to the equation. Do I need attacking spinners? Do I need defensive? So it all boils down on how these guys perform in the IPL, and end of the day, that is the basis of selection there.
Fair enough. I think with the team selection across both sides is a little bit hampered. Obviously, you've got resting, you've got injuries, you've got the IPL coming up as well, and I think a little bit that's to do with maybe who's been selected. I appreciate though Krunal Pandya had a really good domestic season. If we just go actually to the next point I want to discuss, if we stick with the bowlers, Bhuvneshwar Kumar obviously came up in the last show we did about how exceptional he was across those 5 matches. He followed up obviously in this format. Obviously, we know that Jasprit Bumrah is the number 1 white ball bowler, in my opinion. Do you feel that Bhuvi is a man that now Kohli can trust just as much as Jasprit Bumrah in the death overs? Aditya, I'll start with you. I just want to do a quick round, Sayan, Anurag, Aditya, on Bhuvi, because I feel like his performances do deserve a bit of a mention.
100%. Both Bumrah and Bhuvi. And Bhuvi was exceptional in the series. His control at the beginning and towards the end. And I think just the way he set up Bairstow today and Roy as well is fantastic. So Bhuvi is definitely among the first names on the sheet, certainly in the bowling group. And he absolutely deserves to be there. And not to mention Bhuvi can bat. He's had a couple of notable performances with the bat. Take me back to Sri Lanka when Bhuvi and Dhoni really dug us out of a hole and took us home. So, and he's a good fielder as well. So Bhuvi is an all-round package. I love having him in the team, and long may his glory last. I think he's been fantastic this series.
Cool. Anurag?
Definitely, sure. I'll prefer Bhuvi, Bumrah, and Shami in my pace attack. I'll have swing, pace, and death bowling as well. So it's an all-in-one package.
Sayan?
Definitely, if there's one bowler you can bank on, apart from Bumrah, it's Bhuvi. You need him.
Sorry to a topic loop on this one, but I did want to quickly mention Kuldeep Yadav. He got bludgeoned, as we saw in that second ODI. It's quite a fall from grace, Kuldeep Yadav, and I do feel a bit sorry for him. I don't believe he has the backing of his captain, personally speaking. I don't think Kohli's really a fan at all. That being said, we didn't see Chahal come in, which I was surprised, really. Also, he's dropped the T20 series, and then we didn't see him in these 3 matches. But Kuldeep got an absolute shellacking after hands of Stokes and Bairstow. He's 27 this year. We've also seen the emergence of guys like Akshar Patel, who actually is a year older. Ashwin's still there thereabouts. Washington Sundar is the new kid on the block, you could say. Is it a long road to redemption for Kuldeep Yadav? Will he have to go away now for some time, or do you still think that he's still in the thought process of the Indian selectors? Anurag, I'll start with you.
I feel it's kind of the end of the road for Kuldeep in international as of now. But again, he gets back to the IPL, he gets into the KKR side as of now. He'll have the backing of Owen Morgan, then probably he'll start performing. And that's when he can get back to the international side.
Sayan?
So firstly, Kuldeep does not have the backing of his captain. nor does Chahal as of now. And I don't see him getting into his IPL team's 11 also this year. So it's a long road ahead of him. He needs to have a great domestic season. And there are many spinners ahead of him right now. But I feel the way Kohli used him, the whole Australia and England tour was awful. He deserved better treatment, right? He should have played one of the tests there, one of the tests here on the spinning pitches, and he should have played all the 3 ODIs at least.
So, Aditya, maybe you can enlighten us. I don't personally know Kuldeep Yadav in terms of interviews, things like that. What's his character like? Is he maybe slightly fragile behind the scenes, a little bit like, in my opinion, Dominic Bess? Is the player management of Kuldeep Yadav been what he's needed to get the best out of him? Or there seems to be quite a harsh approach from his captain as opposed to arm around the shoulder, which I feel like, looking at him on the face value, that's what he needs. That's what he's needed. That kind of more of a softer approach. But Aditya, maybe you can enlighten me and the rest of the panel.
That's a mess that's been created entirely by poor selection and the lack of clarity with respect to what we need in the team. It's as simple as that. Because the stand that has been taken by the captain and the selection committee is that if you play Kuldeep Yadav and Chahal together, that extends the tail of the Indian team, which you can't afford in one-day cricket or T20 cricket. Now, if you go back to the South Africa series between Kuldeep and Chahal, they took 32 wickets on tracks that were not ranked turners. So that's testament to how effective they are in international cricket. And I personally am a fan of that partnership. I think between overs 11 and 40, those two can wreak serious havoc in teams that are not comfortable playing spin and high quality spin. But again, it's, as I said earlier, it's that question between actual results and performance. How much do England actually rely on Adil Rashid and Moeen Ali to win them games with the bat? Not a lot, because generally, if it's not Roy, it's either Butler or Morgan or Stokes. One of those guys are going to win them games with the bat. It's not very often. It's maybe 1 in 10 times that they rely on Moeen Ali and Adil Rashid to win them games with the bat. I mean, even today, it's a number 8 batsman. That doesn't happen very often with England. So it's something that the Indian selectors need to get some more clarity about, because this is, Kuldeep Yadav for the last 2 years, I don't think he's done too much wrong, but he's been in and out of the side. And the other day you give him one game, he gets hammered by Ben Stokes, and then he's out. That's not doing a lot for his confidence. So I do think that Kuldeep Yadav has been pretty poorly managed, and someone in that think tank needs to get a better sense of how to create that balance between spinners and fast bowlers.
Thank you, Aditya. Someone who has been given multiple opportunities and has failed to deliver for some time now is Tom Curran. So, Aaron, I want to start with you. I think you know my thoughts this off camera. But what is your opinion, obviously, on him? Obviously, he had a very poor opening 2 games, leading off the back of a very poor summer as well last year in England. Do England persevere with Tom Curran? Obviously, him dropped here. Sam Curran, in my opinion, has overtaken him all 3 formats. Well, obviously, the white ball formats, obviously, Tom Curran's not a part of the test squad or anywhere near. But what did he do with Tom Curran, do you think, Aaron? He's just turned 26 years old. It's an interesting time in his career. Obviously, he's about to go into the IPL on that bumper fat contract he somehow managed to blag from Delhi Capitals. But what do England do with Tom Curran?
Well, for the time being, not international cricket. The fact is, he's taken 3 wickets in the last 10 games. And just before I go into the talk about Tom Curran, I'm not going to scapegoat him. I'm not going to say he's the reason we lost this series. I'm not going to say that he's not worthy of international cricket, because he's proven in the past that he is. And let's not forget, even in 2019, he produced a fantastic match-winning performance against Ireland in Malahide. So the guy is capable of doing it. But that's an informed, confident Tom Curran, not a Tom Curran who's getting belted for 6s, 4s, this, that, the other, and being read on the international stage. And you mentioned there, Aditya, about Kuldeep Yadav. I know in terms of the treatment, it's not the exact same because England have persevered with Tom Curran. But in terms of bowling, both bowlers are being read. I know they're 2 completely different skill sets. Caldeep's leg breaks being red and his wrong guns, and that just means that likes of Bairstow, Stokes, Roy can absolutely feast on him. It's the exact same thing with Tom Curran. I guarantee, for all of us fans watching at home, we knew exactly what he was going to do. Pace on, slow ball, slow ball, slow ball. You could see it. Krunal Pandya, for example, was just sitting in the crease, waiting and waiting and waiting, because for some reason in Tom Curran's game at the moment, he's not utilising the Yorker. And that's something which he always used to utilise for Surrey. It's what he's utilised to England in the past. It's something which, when batsmen were going on the back foot against him, he'd unleash that. It's a wicket-taking option for him. Jobs are good and simple as that. He'd be in the game. And I feel like at the moment, he's just far too readable, so predictable, and he just seems completely out of rhythm with his bowling. It's as simple as that. And England, this is where, I mean, there's a lot of mismanagement that we can talk about. You mentioned Bess already. Selections, this, that, the other. It has been a bit of a nightmarish tour, actually, for England in terms of squad selection. But in my opinion, we shouldn't have selected him for this series, because you already know he's going into that series not having a good domestic cricket season for Surrey. He's going in there having taken 1 wicket in his past 8 games. He's going in there completely out of form, and then you're throwing him to one of the best white ball teams in the world with Rohit Sharma, Shikhar Dhawan, Virat Kohli, Pandya in form. So for me, I think that it's not just Tom Curran's fault. I feel like he does have to go away, work in domestic cricket. I don't think he's ready for international cricket for at least another year. That's my personal opinion. And at the same time, it's poor management from England, because we threw him out to the Lions. Again, we have another scapegoat in English cricket. And to be honest, I feel for him, because for all of the mocking that Tom Curran has had to endure for the past few months, I suppose, even after that Ireland tour, the guy's a talented cricketer. And I'll always have that respect and admiration for Tom Curran. Okay, so this is not coming from a place of spite. This is literally just saying, at the moment, you're not in rhythm, you're not in form, you're too predictable. A bit like Andrew Tye for Australia, for example, relies far too much on slow ball variations. Go back, work on it for Surrey. Maybe the door can be ajar in the future, but for the time being, no, I don't think it's right for England to keep on selecting him.
Joel, I'll head to you. I saw you shaking your head when I mentioned Tom Curran's name. I mean, obviously his economy rates for his career now is actually 6.12. It's actually nudged above. It was, I think, start of the series, it was 5.98. He's now, been here for over a run a ball. What is your opinion? I say the same question pretty much to you, Joe, about how do England move forward with Tom Curran, if they move forward with him at all?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because Tom Curran was, he's had some great performances for England in his career. Really, Aaron mentioned there the Ireland game in Malahide 2 years ago now. It was like a lot longer than that.
Was it the Australia ODI in 2018 as well? He took the 5 or 6. I can't remember.
Yes, he did. Took 5.
Yeah. He has put in performances for England. And personally, I'm a big Tom Curran fan. I think he's been a really important part of this England white ball side. Even in the World Cup, I know he didn't play a game, but still, he was in the squad. He's still a World Cup winner, technically. So, he's still good enough to make the squad. But, right now, it's not working with the bat or with the ball. Even actually, before the World Cup, he was scoring against Pakistan in that bilateral series. I remember that. I think at 52, not out, I want to say. And he played that ramp over his head. And he went literally over the keeper's head. Gun barrel straight. And even, I was like, Tom Curran's got a real shot at getting some good games in this World Cup. And obviously that didn't happen for him. But, right now it's not working out for him. And he's taken, 2 wickets in his last 11 ODIs? Or 10 ODIs or something like that. This happens, people did inform. I think this will be a real test for Tom Curran. Can he bounce back from this? This will prove how good of a cricketer he is, because if we see him, he's inevitably going to go back and play for Surrey in the summer, regardless of what happens in the IPL. He will get picked for Surrey in the T20 Blast, and probably, as he's been in the 100s. So again, there's another white ball competition where he has a chance to show himself. Can he bounce back from this? Can he put his name at the forefront of the England selector's mind, I would say. Because as you said, Shay, Sam Curran, it feels like has really leapfrogged him now in the white ball sides. I don't think Sam Curran's been used right on this tour of India. I think he should have been opening the bowling, because that's when he's best with a new ball. But regardless, he has been picked when Tom Curran hasn't. And I think that is A, a real testament to Sam Curran, because it shows how much of a good player he is. And B, shows the dip in form of Tom Curran. And it is sad to see, because, as I say, I'm a big fan of him. He was has been a great player so far in his England career. So hopefully he can rediscover that form. But I think right now the right thing for him to do is to look. If he plays in the IPL, then that's great. But I think almost kind of ride that off, because that could really knock his confidence as well. In terms of the IPL is brutal, isn't it? You know, you're playing against the best players in the world. It is the biggest T20 tournament in the world. It is a brutal place to play if you're out of form. So yeah, I think the T20 Blast in the summer will be a tell-all for me, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes.
I actually think it might be a good thing for her, Tom Curran. I don't think he's going to get many games for Delhi, to be honest with you, with KG and Nokia there anyway. But I think actually might be good for him just simply to sit around for a few weeks and just feed off these guys. Stephen Smith's going to be there as well. I appreciate the batsman.
Ponting as well.
That's obviously. Sorry?
Ricky Ponting as well. I mean, he's literally one of the best ever players.
I just feel like it's time to maybe step back. I mean, Aaron mentioned about just he should have maybe not been rested for the series or dropped, whichever you want to call it. But maybe it's just time for him to kind of just maybe go back and think about his game a bit more rather than playing. Maybe watching the likes of KG and Nokia in the net, for example, and be Rownley and Stoinis is there. Obviously, Hetmeyer. There's a wonderful squad throughout, isn't it? Indian and overseas contingents. Maybe that'd be really good for him actually for his development as a player. Maybe come back from the IPL just mentally recharged with a lot more of a clarity in his game. I think Ricky Ponting is a great shout, Joe. I think someone could really help him. There's obviously guys, obviously, Joe, as I mentioned before, you're part of the County Cricket podcast. You've got deep knowledge of the county game. Is there anyone that could be, maybe he could be looking over his shoulder, like say George Garton? You know, so obviously different options, but is there anyone that maybe could be there who could will be looking at a spot as possibly to take? In
terms of a like-for-like replacement, or just bowlers up and coming?
I think Jane Bowles who can battle a bit. Could Chris Jordan find himself back in the ODI squad, for example? As I mentioned, George Garton, Tyler Mills, obviously doesn't really a batsman, but could Jake Bowles force his way back in? Is there anyone else I can maybe see?
I would love to see Saqib Mahmood get a game. I know he can't bat, but you know he's such a good player. And Shoaib Akhtar said after the PSL, which obviously has been postponed, but Saqib was the leading wicket taker as far as I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I'm pretty sure he was up until the PSL got suspended. And Shoaib Akhtar was highlighting him and full of praise for him. And again, not a bad bowler to praise your game, to be honest. So yeah, I'd love to see Saqib Mahmood get more of a go. I think him and Parkinson have both been underused by England, Parkinson especially this winter. But I think George Garton's a great shot as well. Probably for me needs a few more years to kind of grow, because he's still only 22, around that kind of age. So yeah, he still needs a couple more years to kind of grow. But again, the thing is, as much as ODI series is important and England want to win, they're still ultimately building to win a World Cup. And there's 2 years now, 2 and a bit years to go to the World Cup. Realistically, they're going to qualify, right? Regardless of qualification points, realistically, England, same with India, are going to qualify. So again, similar to India, really, they who are should probably try stuff, should probably kind of experiment. I think England should do the same. Give Garton a go, especially if he has a good summer. Give Garton a go. At the end of the day, if he doesn't perform, then come back in a few years and have another go. But the way I see it is, England should just try new things. Experiment and be brave with their cricket, because that's their outlook in actually playing. And if they can take that mentality into selection, then again, I don't think that can do England any harm. But on Chris Jordan as well, for me, I think it's criminal that he doesn't get any ODI side. He's, for me, he's England's best ever T20 bowler, numbers wise. For me, I think, when was his last ODI? I'm trying to remember. Was it 2015 or 2016? I think it was around then. It was after the World Cup in 2015. So, yeah, for me, it's ridiculous that Jordan doesn't get a look in. He can bat as well, and he's such a good bowler. He's such a high-skilled bowler. He's played all around the world. He's played in India, Australia, in those T20 tournaments. So, yeah, for me, I'd love to see Chris Jordan back. The only thing is age is kind of against him, because he's 33 now. So realistically, in 2 years' time, we maybe get one more World Cup out of Chris Jordan, should he get a look in. But it's not generally the route England look to go down, even though they did with Plunkett.
Just stay with you, Jojo. Obviously, we mentioned before about players trying to force way back in selection. Obviously, with 3 World Cups over the next 2.5 years. Your guy, your Lancastrian player, Livingston, I thought was excellent in these 2 matches. I think what really impressed me was that obviously Owen Morgan wasn't there, wasn't the shadow of the normal captain, looking over him. Yeah, he came in that second match. Booby was playing so well. He came to the crease and walloped him that first over. And he played. And what I really respect about him is that he wasn't overawed at all. And I know obviously he also made his debut in 2017 against South Africa, but this is his ODI debut. He's 27 now, I believe, and he's 28 in August. So maybe that debut came a little bit too soon, 4 years ago, but he seems to mature. Obviously, he's played around the world. We saw him do really well for Perth Scorchers, alongside Jason Roy, top of the order. Could we, if you look at Livingston now, maybe the time is really it's done quite well for him. Obviously, we saw the injuries, unfortunate, to Morgan and Billings. But I want to wrap this up in a kind of a larger point. So, as I mentioned, I've seen numerous occasions now that the World Cup is 2.5 years away. All Morgan's going to be 37 years old at that time, if it's still scheduled to be October 2023. Do you think there's actually a possibility that Owen Morgan will not be the captain in 2.5 years' time of the ODI side? And the likes of Livingston have come in. I think it's unfortunately a bit too late for David Milan. I think he's only a year younger than Morgan. I think by that time he's going to be 36. So his time might have passed in terms of playing in that World Cup. But Liam Livingston would have been 30. I actually think that is going to be, Joe, you'll know this. If you look at the England football team in 2012, they always said that was the peak of that side with Gerrard and Lampard and Ferdinand, etc. I see the 2023 World Cup as the peak of this team. That'll be it. I think that'll be the end. I think you'll see a downward turn. Look at the age of the players. There'll be north of 30, 32, 33. I think there'll be the next team coming through. Now, Livingston will be 30 years old at that point. He could be a mainstay in the side going into that World Cup. Why I'm saying this is because we've seen, obviously, Morgan and Billings, especially in Morgan's case, these have been stalwarts of the white ball sides for, well, in Morgan's case, over a decade. But we've now seen Milan, we've seen Livingston come in. Obviously, the likes of Tom Banton to come back in at some point, we imagine. Is there a potential, really, for Livingston to become a real key part of that middle order? And do you think one of the players actually can make way for him could be actually Owen Morgan himself? Joe, I'll start with you and I'll go to Aaron.
I mean, for me, I think that's a real possibility. I mean, Owen Morgan, what a player, absolute legend. Nobody's going to dispute that. But I just say he will be 37 come 2023. Generally, you don't see too many players playing international cricket at that age. That's just a fact. International sport at that age, that's just a fact. So, yeah, I think Liam Livingston in this series. I mean, I know what he could do. I know what he's all about. I've seen him do this countless times. I've seen him take wickets. I mean, all right, his wicket wasn't very good, but still, a wicket's a wicket, isn't it? I've seen him do that loads. I've seen him score so many runs, and it's so good to see him get an opportunity finally. That personally, I think he's been deserved of for the last probably 2 years now. He kind of was Lancs captain, didn't work out for him, and then Dame Villas took over, and that's really when he started to hit his form even more. So, yeah, personally, I think Livingston could really be a mainstay. I just say he'll be 30 in 2023. That is the peak age for a professional sportsman. Kind of 28 to 32, that kind of period is where you will roughly hit your peak. So
and all these guys will be 33. Bairstow will be 34.
Yeah.
Stokes will be 32. Yeah. Butler will be 33. You see, that's what I feel like they're going to be getting any better than that period. I imagine. So
exactly.
But could Morgan be the one to make way and Butler take the armband?
Yeah, well, I definitely think Morgan could make way. Personally, I think if England win one of the next 2 World T20s, I think Morgan will call it quits because quit while you're winning. Especially if England win this next World T20, in my opinion, Morgan could retire because he will have won the World Cup and the World T20. It doesn't really get much better than that. Forget the Champions Trophy.
He cemented his legacy as probably the best white ball captain of England ever. Fact. If he wins
the best, alongside Dhoni, him and Dhoni, probably the best 2 white ball captains ever, without a doubt, in my opinion. So yeah, for me, that could be the time that Morgan retires, certainly from international cricket. But just on Josh Butler, you mentioned there, does he take the captaincy? Personally, I do not think he should. I'm not a fan of Josh Butler's captaincy. I think he got this series. Well, when he was captain, the last 2 games, I think he got it so wrong. And maybe that's just because we're used to seeing Morgan's level-headedness and expertise, really. Not to say that Butler doesn't know what he's doing, because of course he does. But Owen Morgan is so much better than anyone in the world in white ball cricket in terms of being a captain. And Josh Butler, for me, got it horribly wrong. I think in the second ODI, the fact that he kept on bowling the Currans, certainly Tom Curran, and kind of left Reece Topley to not bowl his allotted overs. That's just bizarre to me. It didn't make sense. So, I mean, for me, it's a bit obvious, but I just think Joe Root should be the next England one-day captain. I just think that is the most obvious thing. It makes perfect sense. People may say give it to Ben Stokes. I don't think that's necessarily something England should do, because we saw in the summer Stokes was captain. Kind of impacted his performance a little bit, in my opinion. So, for me, I think Joe Root thrives as a captain, as a batsman as well. He's kind of really started to grow into that role in the last few years, especially this winter. We've seen him got 2 double hundreds. So for me, when Owen Morgan retires, certainly from ODI cricket, Joe Root is the natural leader. It's not like he's not done it before. I just don't think Josh Butler's a good captain, in my opinion. Again, people may have different opinions, but yeah, I don't think he's a good captain. I mean, put it this way: if he was the captain. If he was to captain Lancs, which I don't think that would ever happen, I would not be confident of winning a trophy under his leadership. And I believe Lancs have the best squad on the circuit, on the captain circuit. So, I'm not a massive fan of Josh Butler's captaincy. I would love to see Joe Root be the one-day captain.
You should see Aaron's face, your reaction to his comments. It just makes me
that was a bold
up.
statement, but like I say, I mean, I would love to see Joe Root be the captain. Stokes is the vice captain probably, and from there, you'll find leaders as you go. You say like these guys are kind of on the wrong side of 30 now, that will become 2023. You'll find leaders. Maybe Tom Banson's that guy in 5 years' time. Who knows? You will maybe. I mean, it will be quite interesting, but maybe in T20 cricket, we've seen Stuart Broad take over the captaincy. Maybe that's something Archer will do. Who knows? That would be quite an interesting thing, I think. If
Jofra Archer is England captain. That, I mean, honestly, put money on that now. You get good odds on that, mate. Jofra Archer's captain right now.
I tell you, like, you never know. You can never predict a leader in 5 years' time. We can say Joe Root confidently is a good captain now because he has shown that, certainly in Test cricket. So, in my opinion, he's the natural successor to Morgan. He's obviously going to get in the team. He would have got in this team had he been there, which personally I think he should have toured anyway. But yeah, I mean, Livingston, back on him. Brilliant, great to see him scoring runs, taking a wicket, and yeah, the way he played Boothie, as you say, in the first over on his debut, the first ball he walked down, and sure he blocked it, but he walked down to, as we've already talked about, India's best bowler, and yeah, he just every single time I've seen Livingston bat, that is how I've imagined he will bat in white ball cricket, and all credit to him for not changing his game or the way he plays, because he was phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's testament as well to the management there that they've had this template, this ethos, and irrespective of who comes in, go back to the earlier point from the early start of the show, is that you fit into our ethos and our structure, how we play.
Another person, like Phil Salt. Phil Salt would be perfect for that. He just fits right in. He plays so aggressively. Joe Clark, another one, fits right into that. So England have great options with the bat.
These are the guys I see coming through as the next generation. You see, Phil Scott, I think he's 25 this year. Joe Clark's 26. These are the guys I'm talking about now. I think these guys are the next. And obviously, we've got to mention Sam Hain. Aaron's here, isn't it? We've got to mention Sam Hain, another guy born in 95, same age as Joe Clark. So these are, Ben Duckett 94. He's to be 27 this year. So I think they're the next generation. But anyway, Aaron, a quickly one before we wrap up. Just go to you about this point. About Morgan, as mentioned before, about his future as an captain. Going into the next 2.5 years.
Well, yeah, it's an interesting one. And before I just go into a bit further, I just want to ask both yourself and Joe, really, if that was the case, where would you bat Liam Livingston? If you're going to drop Owen Morgan, how would the batting lineup actually come to fruition?
Assuming there's no Milan.
But yeah, if Joe Root's in there.
I mean, well, I personally would open the batting with him. In a normal game, but you can't break up Ryan Beto, of course. So for me, number 4 is his best position inside. It's as close to opening the batting as he's going to get.
I quite like Stokes at 4 actually. I like seeing this here. I like the breakup of the right-handers as well.
True.
So I don't mind Livingston at say 5. I just wonder what to do with Josh Butler, to be honest, in that lineup. I still question that. Where's the best way to get out, the best usage of Josh Butler. Anyway, for another pod. But I would say for you, Aaron, just answer your question right now. I'd say just to crack on with this, but I'd probably say he'd go in at 5.
Okay, right, fair enough. Well, in terms of my opinion on that, I would agree with Joe in terms of the next T20 World Cup. I think if England win one of them, Owen Morgan will go off into the proverbial sunset as one of England's, if not England's, greatest ever white ball players, alongside Josh Butler and definitely our best ever captain. So for me, that's how I think it's going to actually shape up. And then in terms of choices, I mean, earlier as well, mentioned about seamers. Neither of you mentioned Jamie Overton or Lewis Gregory, potentially ones who could come in for Tom Curran in the next few ODIs. So I think England have got some incredibly interesting decisions to make ahead of them. Owen Morgan being the biggest of them, because as we know, the World Cup winning captain. It is really up to Owen Morgan, though, because let's face it, at the end of the day, we all remember 2015 from the ashes of that defeat against Bangladesh at the Adelaide Oval and all the embarrassment and the condemnation of that team. Owen Morgan created this team. If Joe Root became the captain, is it suddenly going to keep up this momentum? Are we still going to be a number one team? We're still going to be a contender? Will the current approach actually work, or Joe Root want his variation on it? So it's an interesting choice. So for me, I think, as I said, T20 World Cup, if England win, Owen Morgan may have to make way. As I said, final decision up with him. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting one to say the least. And in particular, the captain, because England have got 3 incredibly difficult choices.
So who would you make your captain then? Let's say Owen Morgan retire. Let's just look at ODI cricket. Just T20, there's loads of different options. ODI cricket, who is your captain if Owen Morgan is not an option?
It's a tough one. I don't see why Josh Butler's VC, unless we're going to keep him as vice-captain. I agree with you, Joe. I don't think he's the right man to lead England, because even though he's a great player, we saw this with South Africa and Quinton de Kock, your best player isn't necessarily your best captain. I think in terms of at times of bowling rotations, you mentioned there with Topley as well with the spinners. I don't think he got it right in this series. But again, that could just be lack of experience. Who knows? England could want Josh Butler. If it was me personally, I would go Root. I would also go Joe Root, purely because Ben Stokes, again, it is that same principle. And again, he wears his heart on his sleeve. I don't think Ben Stokes, let's say we're getting down to 10 runs in the final over, or if it was that 2019 Super Over, would be the right man to have, commanding the field. So for me, it would have to be Joe Root. But again, are England going to just say, you know what, Joss, you were the next in line, but just stay as vice-captain? And I suppose, again, that's up for Silver to decide, and we'll have to wait and find out, won't we?
I often think a lot of vice-captains are just vice-captains. I often think that, would Rohit Sharma be the next England captain should Kohli not be available for whatever reason? I don't necessarily know if he would. Yeah, it's a long debate. I just thought I'd make that point. He's often vice-captains, in my opinion, are just vice-captains.
Well, we saw a merry-go-round of vice-captains in the Australia tour of India, when India went, didn't we? So it was constant moving. Pujara, then went to Rohit Sharma, obviously Rahane stepped up. We got to finish off here, guys. So quickly do just a quick run around with Sayan, Anurag, and Aditya before we wrap up. Just your last really points on this series, and even if you want to go like just the whole tour in general, any kind of final points you want to bring up, Aditya, very quickly?
Overall, great series, but I think if we're talking Test T20 ODIs Test series, the questions for England selection strategy and just whether or not this rotation system has worked, or whether there are questions about how it is implemented. In saying that, it was still a fantastic series to watch, and although we would have liked to see all the tests go to 5 days, we're privileged to see what we did. T20 series, incredibly exciting. Again, some questions for India as to how they want to proceed for the World Cup, but overall it was a good testing ground for us. And same with the ODI series. It was incredibly well played, and the competitiveness was fantastic. Hopefully, from here, I guess both teams will get better. Personally, I'd love to see, just throw my 2 bits in with respect to the Owen Morgan debate. I do hope that Morgan continues to the 2023 World Cup, because he's a fantastic player, but he does need to get a few more runs under his belt, because I think that's been lacking over the last couple of months. But exciting times for both teams, and overall incredible series. So I'm looking forward to the IPL now.
Very well put. Anurag?
Yes, yes. So a very competitive series, but 2 worrying things for me from the Indian perspective. So 500 days since we've seen a Virat Kohli century. Second thing, the way we played spin bowlers, very worrisome. I mean, we've been trying too hard to counter their spinners, but we've not been that successful, I should say. And one positive thing is the rise of Shardul Thakur. He's now a breakthrough bowler for us. He's giving wickets at regular intervals. He's been contributing with the bat as well, hitting sixes at will, with good strike rate as well. So that is one very good thing we found out from this series.
Thank you, Anurag. Sayan?
Yeah, so it's a great series, of course, that happened. The scorelines don't show how competitive it was, except for the Test series, of course. I believe India's do have questions to answer as of their bowling setup and their five-bowler theory. Also, the rise of Bhuvneshwar Kumar, the comeback of Bhuvneshwar Kumar, the rise of Rishabh Pant as an all-format batsman, and Shardul Thakur, the all-rounder, is, I think, great. And also, I would like to pitch in that Owen Morgan debate. I think he should continue till 2023. And I believe he's a great batsman. Like, I've seen him bat in almost all the English matches. And I do believe he has a great IQ because he's leading my team.
Right, we'll leave it there, guys. Actually, thank you for your insights, everyone. But before we go, something quickly, as I always say, where can we find you? So, Joe, we'll start with you.
Yeah, you can follow my Twitter at Nutsy99. I post some good banter on there, so yeah, go and follow it.
Quite questionable there, Joe.
If any hardcore Man U fans are listening, go and follow Joe, because I think he actually loves United more than cricket. The way he talks about United is. Sayan, where can we find you, mate?
You can find me on Instagram at Bastionat, as usual.
Bastionat, yo.
Hey,
One more
two nuts
time.
for the day.
2 nuts.
I actually have none of that.
Aaron?
Well, I'll do the Krishna. So there, right there, that's the personal. And then, of course, the County Cricket podcast at the County Crick 2 with myself and Nutsy 99 on the screen
I
there.
forgot about that, actually, to be honest. I actually did.
Shocking.
My bad.
New co-host
Just personal
applications
for
will be
Joe,
going up
just-
soon.
Yeah.
Should have mentioned that.
And the podcast has got a new, well, I won't say anything, but there is development to the podcast, so do check
Indeed.
these guys out.
Yep.
New
So
signing.
yeah, do check new
signing.
signing.
Yep.
Yeah, new signing. Anurag?
Guys, you can find me on Facebook as Anurag Reddy and on Twitter as The Obvious Madlad.
Thank you, Anurag. Aditya?
Aditya Mehta on Twitter and Instagram, and Aditya Mehta on Facebook.
You will find Aditya and Aaron, to be fair, on Cricket Fanatics magazine. Aditya is, I believe, also writes articles on a regular basis. Aditya, don't you? And you feature on a lot of the shows. So go check those guys out as well. I'm sure you really do if you're on here. But yeah, thank you so much, everyone here. It's been really great. I've enjoyed the last 2 months talking about this whole series across the 3 formats. Aaron and Joe, thank you. And Joe, really good to see you again, mate. Joining on. Aaron, thanks so much. You've been on the last 2 shows. Obviously,
Thank you.
offering wonderful insights as always. Anurag, Aditya, and Sayan, I must say a massive thank you to you guys. You've come here every show. You pitched up, and I appreciate it's really late in the year as well. I'm not the easiest person in terms of my timing, so I really do appreciate you 3 coming on. Shout out as well to Lucy Reese, who's unable to come on this show today. Krishna Kalki, big shout out to my mate, the rap maestro Krishna. We also had VJ Natvara on here as well in the first show. So yeah, just thanks to everyone who came on. It's been really great. I've really enjoyed it, and I hope to see all you guys again. Obviously, when India come and tour England. So yeah, that'll be really good. And if you like the content, guys, I always say do please like, comment, subscribe, and hopefully I'll see you on the next one. All right, cheers, guys. Thank you.
Cheers,